The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast do not represent or reflect the official policy or position of the Take a Paycheck Foundation and podcast. All information shared is from personal experiences and does not constitute medical advice. We do not take responsibility for any statements expressed during the podcast. Take a Paycheck does not endorse any products or services. Any said products or services mentioned on this podcast may not be suitable for you or your condition. Please consult with your physician if you have medical questions, as it may pertain to your condition.
Hi everyone, welcome back to this week's episode on Take a Paycheck. I'm so excited to have Brookie joining me today. Hi Brookie, can you give me a brief introduction about yourself? Tell me a little bit about your education, your hobbies, and what you've been up to recently.
Thank you for having me. I've just finished high school last year and have just done a certificate for an allied health assistance in physiotherapy and occupational therapy that I only finished about 2 weeks ago. I'm an artist, so I make little paintings. I sell them sometimes. I have psoriatic arthritis.
Yeah, I was gonna jump right into that very quickly, but thank you for bringing that up. And you're also from Australia. I feel like people would have recognized that from the accent, but I just wanted to let people know. When were you diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis? What made you actually go see a healthcare professional?
I've had chronic pain mostly in my feet since I was about 12, but it was more sort of anytime I'd go to a doctor, it was just see a podiatrist because it's only my feet that's sore. Or doctors would just say, oh, well, you've been complaining about this for a while. It's probably just growing pains. You're a teenager, you're growing. So it wasn't until once COVID happened and the whole world sort of shut down. And then once things started opening back up again, because I'd been at home for so long, and then all of a sudden was moving so much more that my whole body sort of shut down and I sort of couldn't walk anymore. And then my mum ended up saying, you're missing too much school. Coming home crying every single day. It was just too painful. So went to the doctor, I went to the hospital, thought that was sort of going to be it. I'd go there and then come home that night. I ended up staying there for about a week. The doctors just didn't know what was wrong and then still was sent home with no answers, which sucked. Within a couple of months, I'd end up being referred to a neurologist because I thought that it was neurological. And then the neurologist said, no, I'd like to refer you to a rheumatologist and see their opinion. And immediately when I went to the rheumatologist, she said, oh no, you've got psoriatic arthritis. You can tell straight away. It's sort of there was all this build up for just her to tell me straight away the first time meeting me that I've got psoriatic arthritis.
I feel like I've talked to a lot of different people and they've had such similar but also sometimes different experiences because they've just hopped through multiple doctors and then after waiting for so long, it's yeah, by the way, you actually have this. Why did I have to see all these different types of doctors just for you to spit out 3 words and tell me what I have? It's so frustrating. But were you ever sort of misdiagnosed in any cases, or were there any other sort of conditions that they were thinking it was?
Aside from the neurological side, because I do have a cousin who has a neurological condition, which is why, and she was the one who sort of pulled my mum aside and said hey, I think you probably need to have a look into this. I'm seeing a lot of sort of my childhood in Brookie. I'm seeing a lot of similarities, the feet pain, the leg pain, just the tiredness, which is sort of why when we'd mentioned at the hospital, oh, I've got this cousin who has this condition called CMT, that the doctors sort of straight away referred to a neurologist because I said, well, if there's a family history of it, then you really need to look into it. And I'd have loss of feeling in my legs, which would cause falls, or I just wouldn't be able to stand up because I couldn't feel my legs at all. So they sort of said, well, that's really concerning. So I went to a neurologist, and aside from thinking it was CMT, not really, there hasn't really been a misdiagnosis. It's sort of been questioning if it's another condition, but then tests came back negative.
When you have those family connections or someone, you always kind of think, okay, maybe it's genetic. But for you, do you think the psoriatic arthritis was genetic? Does anyone in your family have it? How did that kind of work? I mean, I know the answer to this, but for people listening, I can feel a lot of the times when you think about rheumatic diseases, the one that I have, which is idiopathic, we don't think of the genetic component, unknown cause. We don't know what it is, But for psoriatic arthritis, I know that even rheumatoid arthritis, like I've seen people that have parents or siblings or cousins that have it. So I'm wondering, like in your case, is there any genetic component to what you have?
So at first, it was only me. My mum sort of mentioned, like, as she's growing up, and even now, I've got now my two younger siblings that have both been diagnosed since I've been diagnosed, which is a lot better for them, given that since I was diagnosed, they've now got that immediate family member who has like that official diagnosis. But I know my mum's been mentioning since the three of us have sort of gone through all of this, like, oh, but I used to do that when I was a kid. I used to have that and I still have that. And so she's never been diagnosed, but she's sort of looking at us going, that's the exact same as me. So we feel like my mum could also have it, but me and my siblings have been diagnosed.
And how did that feel? I know that you just mentioned that it's easier in a way for them, but obviously, as an older sibling, how does that make you feel that like two of your other siblings have it too?
It's really weird to explain. It's sort of like a bittersweet feeling where it's like I don't want them to have this condition, but at the same time, it's sort of nice to not be the only one in the family. Because I know, especially at like family events, I'd show up and I'd have crutches, or I would just sit and I'd have all my little cousins, trying to drag me off to play, or like everyone's standing to talk, no one's actually sitting to talk. And I'd awkwardly just go find a chair. And everyone would go, oh, why don't you come join them? Why don't you come join them? And it was always like just me who was saying, no, 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 I'm just going to go sit off in the corner. And then my siblings started to have the same sorts of pains. And all of a sudden it was like us three would sit in the corner. Or like us three would sit down. But then, so with the diagnosis, because I've had pain since I was about 10 to 12. So I've gone through all this testing. I've gone through, all these trials, all sort of just eliminate the possibility of it being anything else. And then once I was diagnosed, they were only diagnosed a couple of months after. So it sort of felt like I was like the guinea pig and they just sort of got the answers because I had the answers. But like it was still nice that they weren't like that they didn't have to go through as much. Like not saying that they don't still have to go through quite a bit. It just wasn't like the having to test everything else.
So I guess because you're sort of like the role model in terms of like I have arthritis, how have you kind of helped them navigate life with arthritis?
They've sort of watched me have to just deal with it. Like there wasn't really much else we could do other than just deal with it, which doesn't sound great, but it's like the reality of like still have to go to school. Still like if you need crutches to go to school, just use the crutches. If you need this, just use it. So they would complain quite a bit about it, or like they'd come home and they go, oh, I'm sore, I'm sore, I'm sore. And I'm just sort of there like, yeah, so am I.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So am I. Which, like, I know can sound really cruel. But it is sort of like they would try to complain to me, and it's sort of like it can be like a competition in my house where it's like, oh, I'm in more pain than you, or I've got this and you don't. And it's like, that's nice. Good for you. We're all struggling. Like it's a really weird thing to have a competition about, but like we're siblings. We argue quite a bit. It's sort of like if you're gonna complain, that sucks for you, but I've got it as well.
I see what you mean. It's a completely different environment when you're in like that family
Yeah.
setting because you
Yes.
have that like that personality and the relationship, right? It's like different. Whereas with your friends or like people you meet on social media that have arthritis, it's very different from people that you live with and see every single day.
Yeah. Like I've got a couple of online friends. I don't really know anyone in person who has these conditions, aside from my siblings. But like you just said, it's very different having a friend with the condition versus like an immediate family member. So like I know that with the friends that I've got who have the conditions, anytime that they message me going, oh, I went to the hospital last night for this reason or this reason or this reason, or like I'm having a really bad pain day, or I'm just really tired, or anything like that. I'm sort of like, like I hope you're feeling okay. Like I do hope you're feeling okay. But if it's my siblings, I'm sort of like, okay, so am I. Very different having like the friend versus the sibling who's got the exact same condition.
Yes, sometimes you can be very honest with your siblings and just tell them, like, hey, you're being annoying, like, bye. You started talking about the whole friendship support system aspect of it. So when did you tell your friends about your arthritis?
Basically, immediately when I got diagnosed, but before that, everyone just sort of knew me as like the really clumsy person who's like always, 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 always injured. Like, because like I'd always walk around with like a wrist brace on or a knee brace on, and they're always like, "Oh, but like, did you actually injure yourself, or like what's that for?" And I was like, "Well, it's sore, but somehow this is helping it not be as sore." They're like, "But you're not injured. Like, you said that you're fine." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's still helping." It was like really awkward to try and explain, but like I had a couple of friends who were sort of like, yeah, well, it's just something that you do. You put on a knee brace or you put on an ankle brace or something. But yeah, and then finally when I was diagnosed, everyone was sort of like, oh, well, that makes sense. You could have gotten that done sooner. Like I I tried, but
A big question is like, how did you tell them you had arthritis?
a few months after I'd stayed in hospital, I went back for the rheumatology appointment. And I think I just sort of sent a message to my friend's group chat and was like, hey, turns out it's arthritis. And they're like, what? But because I didn't know what that meant at the time, like I'd heard of like autoimmune conditions and um, like rheumatoid conditions and all that, but I hadn't actually understood. And I had no idea what psoriasis was. Like, had never even heard of that in my life. And all of a sudden, I've got this specialist saying, oh, you have psoriatic arthritis, which is arthritis related to psoriasis. And I was like, cool, that means nothing to me though. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it was very much just a message to my friends' group chat.
And it sounded like they didn't really react negatively. It sounds like they were like, okay, unless I'm reading it completely wrong.
No, it was very much just like, oh, okay, well, at least we know why you're always like injured and like why you're always complaining. Like, it's not just I'm making it up. Like, there's
Yeah.
now an actual reason.
And they're getting answers, I guess, even though you deserve answers. But I guess they do too, in a way too, because they're just like,
Yeah.
where's Brookie? Like, where are you? But living with psoriatic arthritis also means that you have to be on medications. What was your medication journey like? What are you on right now? How did that work?
So I'd started off with Plaquenil and it worked. Yeah, like it did work. No, I started off with another one. I completely forget the name, but then I ended up on like hydroxychloroquine, Plaquenil, um, which like it did help. Um, but I've got a really bad habit of just not taking medications that I'm supposed to take. Like, I mean, I'll be prescribed something and I might have it for a few days and then I just sort of stop. Um, but like I did try that one for a little while and then um just sort of stopped and I haven't really been on anything since. And then I told my rheumatologist this. She's like, I've gone for my follow-up appointment and she sort of said like, oh, what medications are you taking? Like, how have you been going with this medication? And I've gone, I'm not. Like I'm just not. Which like she was happy with. Like I know I probably should. I still have like some pains and everything, but it's like it's not like it was. Like it's not unbearable. I'm happy to have like a little bit of aching. Which doesn't sound great, but like I'm sort of used to it.
Hmm.
It doesn't bother me anymore.
So you're currently not on any medication. Your rheumatologist is like, okay, if that's working for you, it's okay.
Yeah. So if I had more pain, um, I'd definitely start taking it again. But at the moment, it's like it's not bothering me. so I'm not really too fussed about it. So with my siblings, only getting diagnosed, I was the one who sort of went through like all the trials, all the
Yeah.
tests, like eliminate the possibility of it being anything else. Um, but then with medication, I seem to be the one who's sort of like it sort of just worked. Like I think I only trialed two or three, and then that was it, and then just stopped taking them. But I like um, with my siblings, I know that my brother's still on crutches after however many years. He's still trying to find medications that work, and still nothing's really nothing's really working still. Um, my sister, I think she went through about the same as me, but she still has to take the medication. So it's sort of like I went through all the diagnosing tests and everything, but my brother is definitely still going through the medication trials. So medication journey's been very different for the three of us.
It's interesting that you bring that out because as similar as you may be, it's still that you're like very individualized and like every person's body and their symptoms and their treatments are going to be very different. So we talked a little bit about the medication that you were on. Did you experience any sort of side effects or anything? Or I know you mentioned a little bit of pain relief from the medicine, but any side effects with Plaquenil or nothing?
It's sort of hard to tell. I think at the time I was taking it, I was taking some other medications as well because I had started having seizures. So I was on a medication called Keppra, which did not go well for me. It just made me feel horrible. So I sort of stopped everything. Like I know it was the Keppra, but I just ended up stopping everything.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of talked about this before, but when you live with one condition, sometimes you have others too, and it sucks. And for you, you do get seizures. So when did that start, and like, how has that kind of changed your life and like your lifestyle of different things? Because I know you're living with arthritis, but you're also living with that. Like, how does that work and come into play in your life?
Um, yeah, that was a big thing in high school where already people were like bullying me and like making comments and asking all these like really silly questions of like, do you actually have pain? Do you actually need crutches? Are you just faking it? Um, and then all of a sudden I start having these seizures, but I've got to say, but I'm I'm not an epileptic. Like, yes, I'm having seizures, but I'm not diagnosed with anything. I'm not an epileptic. Um, which then made life significantly harder because already I've got this like invisible condition and people are like picking on me for it. And then all of a sudden I'm like just dropping to the floor having a seizure. Um, which, yeah, that wasn't great, but it was very much like my stress levels, my anxiety levels. Like it was sort of as my health was at its worst. So I was on the crutches, couldn't get through a whole day of school. And then I think it was 2020 or 2021. Yeah, the my first seizure was New Year's Eve of 2020. And then it was like once every couple of months, then it was once every couple of weeks, and then it was like one or maybe two a day, like a couple of like at least a couple of seizures a week by the end of it. Um, and then I finished high school and there was no more aside from one this year. So, but yeah, people very much use it as an opportunity to sort of say like, oh, but you're faking your thing, like you're faking all of this. You know, you don't have a diagnosis again, just like with your legs don't work, but you won't say why. So
Wow, that's a lot, especially like in high school to deal with that. Like first you have one condition, people are judging you, and then you like have some other symptoms and they're like, what is wrong with you? And so you don't have like an official diagnosis, but you experience those symptoms. So what has the doctor advised you about that?
um it was very much so I did trial Keppra because you know there's epilepsy in my family. Um So we thought maybe it could be epilepsy. I had a few scans. One of them showed like very, very mild epileptic activity, but not enough to get diagnosed. Um, so I don't have epilepsy, but they still put me on like this epilepsy medication just in case, which just made me feel horrible. Like I could not stand that. Like physically I was okay, but like mentally and like I was tired. Like it just was horrible. So stopped all of that. Um, and it didn't really help with the seizures at all. Like I don't really see why they put me on it because they said that I don't have epilepsy, but then they put me on an epilepsy medication anyways. Um, but no, then they were sort of just like, "Mm, careful with your stress levels. Like try to not do stressful activities." But I'd only ever have the seizures at school or at like the hospital or doctor's appointments.
When they tell you not to be stressed, but it's like, how do I not be
Yeah.
stressed? Like this moment is so stressful. Like I've had many times where people stress me out and then they're like, I hope you're not stressed. This was literally a couple weeks ago in my accommodations office to like for my exam. Like I needed double time and I usually have double time on my like quizzes and tests and like things like that at school. So I went there and they were like, by the way, you don't have extra time. And I was like, okay, well then I'm not gonna write the test if you're not accommodating me. Like that's not very fair to like make me write the test and if you're not accommodating me. And I was like really stressed because it was 20 minutes before the test. She was like, you're not gonna get this accommodation, that accommodation. I was like, why are you stressing me out? Like, this is an important test. Like, what are you doing? And then at the end, she's like, I hope you're not stressed. Like, don't stress out at all. And I'm like, I literally said, you're making me really stressed, and I don't know how I can't stress. It just makes no sense. So, like, I totally understand you.
That'd be so annoying.
Yeah, it's like I've been in my university for 3 years now, and it's like, why are you taking my accommodations away? Like, I had all the paperwork, the doctor shows, and then you're telling me not to be stressed. We were talking about mental health just because, like, a lot of the stress comes from lots of our environment and, like, people we talk to, things we do, just like our pain and our arthritis in general and our conditions. But obviously, we know that, like, mental health is a huge component when, like, dealing with a rheumatic disease. So, how do you take care of yourself during a flare?
Yeah, I sort of just, well, I've got a bad habit of just like pushing through. So it doesn't matter how much pain I'm in, I will just do something. Like if I had plans and I wake up that morning and I'm really not feeling up to it, I'll still go and then just suffer throughout the day and really regret going. But I'll just keep on going. Or like if I really, really feel like I can't go, I might change the plans to be at my house so that I don't technically have to leave the house.
You're basically accommodating yourself, adapting as you still get to do what you want to do, but just like in a more comfortable way.
Yeah. I've got some really good friends now who like understand. So like they might be planning something and I go, oh, I don't really feel like doing that. And then if they ask why, and I say, well, it's probably going to hurt my legs and I'm actually just not in the mood to deal with that. Or like I'm too tired to deal with that. So there are some things that I will do where I know that like the next day or like that night I'm really going to feel it, but it's something that I really want to do, so I'll do it anyways. But then some things I'm sort of like I'd just rather not go out. I'd rather like stay home or let's go to the movies instead or anything else.
Yeah.
Just literally anything else. No, I've got some really good friends now who like listen to that. And if I say like I'm not feeling great, they say that's okay, take your time. Like
That's
it's
nice.
up to you. Just take your time.
Yeah, that's really nice. Like, was it always like that for you, or
No.
okay, so what was that experience like in the past? If you want to share.
Um, yeah, I had some friends sort of like throughout high school who I don't talk to at all anymore. Um, and like as supportive as they were, they wouldn't really accommodate me very well. So like they'd go out for a whole day And if I said anything along the lines of like, I don't think I'd be able to do that, or I think that that's going to be too much for me, they'd still go and I'd stay home. Um,
That's not very nice. I'm like, you just like
no,
get left out of everything then.
yeah. Or I just simply wouldn't be invited because they know that I'd say no, but they still want to go. So, like, I would much prefer be invited to something and have to say no rather
Yeah.
than just not be invited at all.
Yeah, I think that's everyone. It's not just you. Like I would want that too. Like I want the
Yeah.
option to say no, I can't go, or maybe like magically yes, I can go.
And they wouldn't quite believe me if I said, there were many different like groups of friends who I've sort of shut them all out at this point. Or not deliberately shut them out, but like we've sort of lost contact quite a bit. Where I'd say anything along the lines of like I'm really not having a great pain day, or I'm in quite a bit of pain today, or I'm just really, really tired because I wasn't able to sleep last night. And sort of their responses would always be like, oh, well, that's because you do too much. That's because you don't rest. And not actually listening to the fact that, like, no, I actually do have arthritis. Like, yes, I had quite an active day the day before, but I've still got arthritis. Like, it is genuine pain. It's not just because, like, it's not only because I went out the day before. It is still arthritis. And like, if I haven't slept the night before, they go, oh, well, why didn't you just sleep? And it's not as easy as that for me. It's like I do have quite a lot of trouble sleeping. Um, but yeah, just like little things like, you do too much or you need more sleep or something. And
Yeah.
wouldn't quite listen when I said it's not as easy as that.
Yeah, and that literally goes back to the point of like, hey, don't be stressed when you stress me out, or like just like those comments of like, why are you saying those things when I it's not under my control? Like this is what I have. And sometimes
Yeah.
it's like these people are causing you stress, or these people are like, or like just based on the circumstances, like you can't sleep because of your condition. But now I'm wondering, how did you transition to the new friends that you have that seem to be really nice and amazing?
Um, there wasn't really much of a transition at all. Yeah, I'm no longer in contact at all with a lot of my old friends. Um, and then I got back in touch with one of my old friends, who sort of introduced me to his friend group, and now we're just sort of all together. But they're lovely to me.
No, that's honestly
Like I've sort of
amazing.
like I've realized like if I say something, I actually can be listened to.
And that
Like
should
I'm
be
not just
normal. Like it shouldn't be that they're not listening to you, and that's what I'm
yeah,
thinking. Like I think also for me too, you need, and just in general for everyone, I think you need to just find your people. And as cringy or whatever it
yeah,
sounds like,
absolutely.
you need to find your
And
people, and it takes a long time to find them. Or sometimes for people it's like very quick, but like don't give up and don't think that, hey, no one's gonna like me or accommodate me for what I can do and can't do. Even now, I find myself like not telling every single person I have arthritis, or like all my friends I have arthritis, but like the close ones that I know that'll like accommodate me. Like you can have certain types of friends. Like everyone has different types of friends. Friends that you just like do schoolwork with, friends that you go out with, like friends that like you trust and like will be there for you.
with a lot of my friends that I had during high school, it was sort of like they were who happened to be around. Like they weren't necessarily like now that I'm out of school and I can actually go and be with people who I want to be with, it's not necessarily, well, that's who there is. Like that's who I'm going to school with every day. It's who I'm with like every day of the week. So that's who I'll stay with. But then since high school, I talked to maybe three people who I went to high school with. Everyone else I've like they're just not there.
So you live in Australia, like we kind of mentioned, and you're also involved with Take a Pain Check as an ambassador. So I'm wondering, like, how did you find Take a Pain Check?
Um, I had gotten an Instagram post about the blog article. I think I responded to you about the blog article, and then
Maybe.
we just kept on talking. I think it was the blog article. Um, and we just sort of kept on talking from there, and then you're like,
That's
oh,
so
I'm
interesting. I'm like, let me go check right now. Really? Like, I don't remember
Blog
this.
article. I think it was the blog article. And then you'd mentioned like, oh, what about an ambassador or something? Because I know that I've reached out to a lot of people, all the
You're
messages.
so right. I just checked. I just checked my message with you.
Yeah, I got like just on my For You page, I got the blog article post or something like, um, and I responded to that, and then we just sort of kept on going from there.
Yeah. Okay, that's so interesting. Yeah, okay. I was like, I don't remember this, but that's because like I've been talking to like a lot of people that have arthritis. Like I see lots of people like reaching out to us, and I'm like, I remember certain like I remember who our ambassadors are, but I always forget like how'd you find us? So that's
You talk
good.
to a lot of people.
I do. Lots of arthritis friends. See, also one more thing, because you're talking about friends. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, I feel like you know there's like an arthritis community out there on social media. You just gotta find them. We're all about that, really. Yeah, if you ever want to reach out to Brookie, I feel like you'll be happy to like talk to someone who lives with arthritis and like support them. But also, like us at Take a Pain Check, and Brookie's part of Take a Pain Check.
And like I think it's only for Australia at the moment. But I'm in a group chat. Well, now it's two group chats because I'm 19 now. So um, there was one called MSK Kids through Musculoskeletal Australia or MSK Australia. No, but it's actually been really good. Like I've met a couple of really, really nice people. That's where I've met a lot of my online friends who have the same conditions.
Yeah.
Um, where we all talk and we're like, oh, I have this condition, or oh, you have this one. That's nice. Like I have this one. Here's like, saying what's similar, what's different about our conditions.
That's the whole point of even Take a Paycheck, and it's so great that you mentioned that resource. Like, if you have any links or anything, I'll definitely link them down below because I feel like some organizations or groups are just like to certain countries, so there might be people who are in Australia want to talk to people in Australia. Like, who knows? And I'm happy to share that with people. Find people with the same condition as you. It's so important because sometimes you just want to like ask for advice or like be like, hey, have you
Yeah.
like how have you asked for your accommodations? Like, what accommodations do you get? Blah, blah, blah. They just questions like that. I feel like I've found people like through like research projects or through Take a Paycheck that I can just like talk to. And we're also trying to eventually like make our Discord public. It's not there yet. So we are working on it and hopefully it'll be up and running soon or run by our ambassadors. So I guess stay tuned for that because it's not out yet like to the public, but it's like invite only. So if anyone wants our link, like you can email us. I'll put our email in the description. Very inactive will be active soon. It used to be active, but I think we started being inactive because we got really busy with everything. So I think we're just trying to like plan some stuff out. And I guess can you talk a little bit about your experience as an ambassador at Take a Pain Check and like what you've gained from it? Literally anything. Feel free to share.
Um, it sounds really weird. I think the main one would be time zones. I've learned a lot about time zones that I didn't know before.
Oh yeah. We
Like
struggle. But you're always awake at like really late times. So then I'm just like, I think you should go to sleep. And you're like, no, I actually stay up till like 5 a.m. And I'm like, are you sure? Like, you're like whispering. And I'm like, are you sure, Brookie?
No, actually, it has been really good. Like, I know I do make a few TikToks. I think it's like once a week or so.
Mm.
Um, like, which has been like actually really good because even if I'm slightly late with getting it posted, like I've still got to go. It actually gives me something to do. Like I have to go find an audio and like actually set up everything to like film a TikTok. Um, which, it's I've literally never like just sat there and recorded myself specifically to post online,
Yeah.
let alone to an organization.
You're like a little
No,
influencer. You're a Take a Paycheck influencer.
God. But now I have friends who message me, like randomly message. I've actually had like three in the last week who have messaged me, like a reel or a TikTok from Take a Pain Check, and it's one of mine. And they're like, oh my gosh, you just showed up on my Instagram, or you just showed up on my TikTok. I'm like, oh God.
Wait, but that's so good though. We're raising awareness. We're making it to places in Australia.
Yeah, so it's like they message me randomly and they go, oh my gosh, I just found you. Like you just showed up. But also it's been nice because at least my friends get to like actually see, like it's not just me. They're seeing me post to Take a Pain Check and seeing everyone else post to Take a Pain Check, and they're like, oh, that like that isn't just something that, oh, that's not just something that Brookie says to complain. Like I'm seeing others say it as well. And like now I've got friends who send me like arthritis memes or arthritis like videos, and they're like, oh, can you relate to this? I'm like, yeah, I can. Like, and they actually could pick like, oh, that's something to do with arthritis. Like, and they've been able to like actually relate it to me, which like I don't want to be known as like the girl with arthritis, but like it's nice that some of my friends do see that and they're like, oh, I'm starting to understand.
It's not like, oh, Brookie's just posting this on her story. It's like you actually click the organization. All these people are living with this condition. So it makes you feel less as you're like standing out, because all of us are like posting videos about it. All of
Yeah.
us are young people living with arthritis. So it makes you feel like a little bit more supported and allows them to understand you're not the only one living with this. Like there are other people, so they should understand and make accommodations and like take a look at what we're doing. I think that also gives you an opportunity to like speak out about it without feeling like everyone's looking
Yeah.
at you, because there's so many other people that they can also look at and be like, hey, they all have arthritis, which is fine. It makes you more confident in a way too to talk about it.
Yeah. So like I know even with the Room for Your Mind workshop the other day, I had a couple of friends join and like listen in on that, even though it was like 3:30 in the morning. But like I did have a few friends come in and like listen to that, listen to me talk, and then afterwards was sort of like, well, I didn't realize that you'd felt that way. Like, it was actually really nice being able to hear that side of like how the arthritis has impacted my mental health, and sort of everything has sort of like just come together for them where they've gone, oh, like I can understand now. Like I've just seen you talk as well as this person talk from this perspective, or this person talk from this perspective, but like it all still relates. Like it's all still around arthritis, and they've gone, oh, that actually makes sense.
For everyone who doesn't know what Room for Your Mind is, because I feel like that was my next question, but you already got to it, which is amazing. It's a workshop that we led with the Canadian Arthritis Patient Alliance, and we had different perspectives. So it was like a 2-day workshop based on our Make Room for Youth project, which is where like we launched a survey to identify the needs of people living with arthritis globally. And based on what people said, we decided to find priorities. So one of our priorities that we released to the public is now mental health and arthritis. And that was one of like the highest priorities where people are like, this is like, we need something that will help fix this problem. And so we launched these workshops, and Brookie was one of our like panel speakers, and she talked about like her experience dealing with like mental health and arthritis. We're gonna have more workshops about the different needs that we figured out from the survey. I don't know if you want to add anything about your experience speaking.
No, it was actually really good. Like at the start we had someone talk about just mental health and arthritis like in general. But then we did get I think it was 4 panelists, and me and another 3, all sort of give our perspectives of like, I know mine was sort of, first of all, it's like someone with arthritis, but then also as someone who has siblings with arthritis, and like, so not only how it impacts me directly, but seeing my siblings have arthritis and like living together with it and everything.
Yeah, I think there was a parent of someone that lives with a rare disease, another patient with arthritis, but she's a bit older, like in her adulthood, and then you. And I'm very happy that you were able to do that. As Take a Pain Check, we kind of just was like, does anyone want to speak in this workshop? And then Brookie reached out. Like, I usually end up the podcast with an advice segment. So what advice would you give to youth who are dealing with a rheumatic disease and also like the social aspect of like being in high school?
Don't listen when people make really dumb comments. Like if you're not being listened to, or someone's saying like, oh, I don't quite, not saying that they don't believe you, but very much giving the impression that they don't believe you, just don't listen to them. Like I listened to people way too much. And they said, oh, but you look okay. You don't look like something's wrong. And I always listened to them. And I said, oh, okay, maybe it's okay. But it obviously wasn't. So don't listen to people if they're just going to dismiss everything.
Thank you so much, Brookie, for joining me on today's podcast episode. We started the conversation with talking about your diagnosis journey, and then we moved on to your experience in high school and how you dealt with changes in friendships and getting some support, whether that be through your family or your friends. We talked about how you were the first of 3 children to be diagnosed with rheumatic disease in your family and kind of like the emotional side of all of that. And we discussed some support groups and as well as your position and involvement with Take a Paycheck as an ambassador and a role on the Make Room for Youth panel for the Room for Your Mind workshop. Everyone like, comment, subscribe, share this episode, stream it on other platforms, and I'll see everyone in 2 weeks on Take a Paycheck. Thanks so much, Brookie. Bye.
Thank you.